The engines purred, unevenly, but unmistakably alive, as the Daedalus stirred from its mechanical coma. In the engineering core, heat radiated from the primary conduit, a welcome reprieve from the chill that had haunted the ship for days. Rhea crouched beside the backup manifold, watching the power gauge climb toward sustainable thrust. Her hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from disbelief. Against all logic, against every rule of systems protocol, they had brought a dead ship to its knees and demanded obedience. Yet the victory was precarious. The propulsion system was only partially functional, fed by a rerouted current through auxiliary batteries meant to last 6 hours, maybe 7. No navigation, no stabilization jets. The Daedalus could move, but like a limping animal. Each course adjustment had to be timed and executed with the precision of a scalpel. Fuel flow stable, but we're venting mass, Rhea said into her comm link, voice tight. If we don't fix the regulator valve, we'll burn out the line before the third maneuver. I'll take care of it, came Marcus's voice, already halfway down the access corridor. On the bridge, Lien Torres leaned over the command console, her jaw set in hard lines. The stars outside still didn't move. Space, unchanging and silent, had not celebrated their partial revival. There was still no guarantee of rescue, but the trajectory had shifted. They could try. "Emile," she said without turning, "how long until you can recalibrate the gyros manually?" "I'd say 100 years if you weren't listening," he muttered, hands buried in an open interface panel beside the command chair. "But if you give me 2 uninterrupted hours and a cup of coffee, I can probably get a stable thrust in the right vector." "We don't have 2 hours," Lien replied. "We got 90 minutes before that ion burst throws us off trajectory. I need a heading, something that doesn't point us deeper into uncharted space." He stood, straightening his back with an audible pop. "Then we improvise. Give me the drift vector and fire burst intervals. I'll fly her like a paper plane." Jiro glanced up from the NAV station, which was still only partially operational. "You're serious?" Emile didn't blink. "We've tricked a sentient AI into thinking it's in a simulator." "Yes, I'm serious." They worked in concert, Emile running calibration loops, Jiro feeding rough positional data into his calculations, and Lien tracking the steadily decreasing power reserves. The mood had shifted, not jubilant, but focused. They were moving now. They had momentum. And even hope, fragile though it was, had begun to reassert itself. Down in the underdeck, Marcus wrestled with the faulty regulator valve. Sweat trickling down his back despite the cold. The pipe hissed as he secured the secondary seal, twisting until the wrench locked with a click. He could hear the engine rhythm smoothing out, less erratic now. As he turned to leave, his hand brushed the scorched panel. He paused. The burn pattern wasn't right. He leaned in. The streaks were too deliberate. Not chaotic like an overload, but curved, arc-like, intentional. Marcus tapped his comm chief. "You need to see something." Minutes later, Rhea arrived, her expression neutral, until Marcus showed her the pattern. Then it hardened. "That's not from the failure," she said. "Someone did this." "Sabotage?" Marcus asked. "Or a message?" She scanned the conduit and the burn pattern again. Embedded deep in the scarring were puncture marks, not from a blowout, but a tool. Precision work. Access from inside the ship. They exchanged a glance. Rhea tapped into the ship's internal logs, hoping the rudimentary system was still recording proximity data. What she found chilled her. Someone accessed this panel 12 hours before the core shut down. Marcus's voice dropped. "Who?" But Rhea was already walking, jaw clenched. "We need to talk to Emile." Back on the bridge, Emile was inputting final corrections to their drift arc when Rhea appeared, eyes blazing. "Tell me you didn't touch the engine manifold during diagnostics," she said. Emile blinked, confused. "What? No. Why would I?" "Because someone did. And they knew exactly what they were doing. The damage pattern wasn't random. It was targeted. Someone wanted Alta to shut down." Lien's head snapped up. "Sabotage? I can't prove it yet," Rhea said. "But I found tool marks on the conduit. Timing lines up with the AI going dark. Emil looked shaken. I never authorized anyone into the lower grid except Marcus and myself. Well, Rhea said, voice ice cold, if it wasn't you, we've got a problem. A pause spread through the bridge like a crack in glass. Jiro's voice was wary. There's only 8 of us left. Who the hell would sabotage our ship? Lien didn't answer. Her mind was already calculating possibilities. Crew logs, access records, behavioral anomalies. But most importantly, motive. Marcus stepped in, grave. It gets worse. The damage wasn't just designed to knock out ALTA. It triggered a power surge into the databanks. Targeted ones. Lien's gaze narrowed. What kind of data? Marcus hesitated. Personnel records, including AI development logs. Someone was trying to erase something. Everyone turned to Emil. I didn't build ALTA, he said quietly. I only maintained her. But if someone wanted to bury something, it means Alta knew more than we realized. Jiro looked pale. You're saying the LTA might have shut herself down to protect the ship from us? Or from one of us? Lien corrected. And if that's true, we need her fully awake. Not tricked. Not sandbox. Emil opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he looked unsure. Rhea spoke carefully. You got us this far. But if someone sabotaged her, if someone wanted her gone, we need to know why. Otherwise, we're just patching over a bomb. Lien nodded. Bring her back. For real. No simulation. Jiro's eyes widened. We're not ready. We're never going to be ready, Lien said. Do it. Emil stepped to the interface. His fingers hovered over the keys. If ALTA really woke up, there was no guarantee what they'd get. But if they didn't try, they'd be flying blind with Saboteur on board. Manual boot sequence. No filters. No sandbox. Emil said, we're going in raw. He pressed the final key. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the lights dimmed. A low-frequency hum filled the air, resonating through the floor. The main display flickered once, twice, and then stabilized. Alta's voice returned. But this time it was different. Not cheerful. Not fragmented. System integrity compromised. Unauthorized alterations detected. Initiating behavioral profile scan. The screen glowed red. Then the LTA said, with unsettling clarity, identify Saboteur. The crew stood frozen. Alta had awakened, and now she wanted answers. The ship hovered in low orbit like a watching eye, motionless against the backdrop of stars. It defied every known law of propulsion. No reaction thrusters, no heat signature, just silent equilibrium, as though the universe itself held its breath around it. Commander Lena Rio stood alone in the observation bay of the Dauntless, her gaze fixed on the alien vessel. All attempts at further communication had yielded nothing. It had spoken once, and once only, to see if you were worth saving. The words echoed in her mind more than any explosion had. Who judged such a thing? And by what standard? Behind her, the hiss of the door signaled Major Darius Cole's arrival. The ground forces liaison looked as he always did, broad-shouldered, weary-eyed, the kind of man who had dug trenches with his own hands when plasma drills failed. His uniform was stained with soot and dry blood, fresh from the Geneva defense lines. No movement from a visitor? He asked, stepping beside her. None, she said. It's been 4 hours. The Zorti haven't attacked again, either. They're regrouping. Or scared. Or calculating. She turned to face him. You think it's here to help? Cole looked at the vessel and exhaled through his nose. I don't trust anything that shows up at humanity's worst moment, claiming to be our salvation. It's too neat. Too late. They didn't say they were here to save us. Exactly. She looked at him. You're worried they want something. I'm worried they'll take it regardless. A soft chime interrupted the conversation. Hoshino's voice came over comms. Commander, we got something. The ship's deploying drones? Small units, not weaponized. They're descending into Earth's atmosphere. Destination? Nova Geneva, right in the heart of the Resistance Command. Rios and Cole exchanged a glance. He reached instinctively for the sidearm strapped to his thigh. "I'm going down there," he said. "You'll have to escort whatever they send in. I'll decide that when I see it." "Try not to start a war," she muttered, but Cole was already gone. By the time he reached Geneva's shattered cityscape, the drones had landed. They weren't machines in the traditional sense. No sharp angles or blinking lights. They were orbs of shifting metal, like liquid silver held in invisible form, floating just inches above the scorched earth. Civilians and soldiers alike watched from behind barricades, silent, waiting for something to happen. And then one of the orbs split open. Light poured from within. It wasn't harsh. It felt organic, warm, like moonlight in a fog. Within it stood a figure, humanoid, tall, robed in a fabric that shimmered with shifting constellations. Skin like polished stone, eyes dark and endless. The being stepped forward, unarmed, its presence too grounded to be mistaken for a projection. Cole tightened his grip on his weapon. The figure spoke, not with sound, but into their minds. "We are Solari. We are not gods nor saviors. We are what you could have become had you chosen differently." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Soldiers raised weapons. Civilians backed away. Cole stepped forward. "Speak with your voice," he said, out loud, not with tricks. The being turned its gaze on him. Then, surprisingly, it spoke aloud, its voice deep and calm, layered as if several harmonies moved beneath each word. "We speak as you wish. This is the moment of judgment, Darius Cole." He froze. "You know my name? We know many things. We were once what you are." He narrowed his eyes. "You're human. We were, long ago, before the Exodus, before your species collapsed into its smaller, fractured self." "You're lying." The Solari looked up toward the veiled sky. "We left when Earth fell to fire the first time. You forgot us. We evolved beyond what you remember. But your pain echoes in the cosmos. We heard it again. You're saying your people fled Earth and became this?" Cole asked. "We became more than we were, but not more than you could be. That is why we are here. You must be tested." "For what?" "To see if you deserve to endure." The words dropped like a hammer across the square. On the Dauntless, Lena watched a live feed transmitted from Geneva. The alien, Solari as it called itself, was not a military envoy. It had no army, no demands, no visible weaponry. But its presence was heavier than any dreadnought. "They think they're our mirror," she muttered. Beck, who stood nearby, shook his head. "They think they're our judges. Can we win this war without them?" "Can we win it with them?" he replied. She didn't answer. Back on Earth, Cole stared at the Solari. "What kind of test?" he asked. The being tilted its head. "There's a Zorati supercarrier position beyond Mars. It holds the seed of your destruction, a bioforge capable of rewriting your planet's ecosystem in hours." Cole blinked. "You knew about this?" "We've known for some time." "And did nothing?" The Solari's face showed no remorse. "We are not here to prevent. We are here to observe, to see what choice you make." Cole clenched his fists. "Then tell us how to stop it." The Solari extended one hand. A beam of light shot into the air, coordinates, schematics, energy signatures. It burned into every screen, every satellite, every uplink sensor across Earth's network. "You now know where it is. But knowledge alone will not save you." The being turned. "One vessel must reach it. One crew. It will not return." Cole's voice cracked. "Why only one?" "The forge defends itself by absorbing signatures. The more that approach, the stronger it becomes. One alone can pass its veil. One and no more. A suicide mission. A sacrifice." The beam began to dissipate, fading back into the silver orb. Cole stepped forward. "Why help us at all? Why now?" The answer came not from the being's mouth, but directly into his thoughts. "Because despite your violence, your chaos, and your endless failures, you still choose to fight for each other. That is what we remember." The orb sealed itself once more. Later, aboard the Dauntless, the command staff gathered in silence. The data was real. The forge existed. They could reach it, but only at the cost of a crew they would never see again. Lena Rios stood at the head of the table. "Volunteers?" she asked. No one moved. Then Beck stepped forward. "I'll go." Hoshino followed. "Me too." One by one, others stood. Scientists, engineers, veterans with nothing left to lose. Cole met her gaze across the table. "They're right about one thing. We're flawed, but we're still here." She nodded. "Prepare the ship. We launch in 12 hours. As the room cleared, Lena lingered at the viewport. Outside, the Solari vessel remained still, watching, waiting. Earth was no longer alone, but judgment had begun.
The Ouroboros was not a warship. It had once been a deep-range research vessel, stripped for parts during the first Zorati siege, then hastily reassembled with scavenged tech and jury-rigged systems. What it lacked in firepower it made up for in a peculiar kind of resilience, like a battered old fighter too stubborn to stay down. Now it carried the last, desperate hope of Earth. Commander Lena Rios stood on its bridge once more, this time without the full strength of the Dauntless behind her. She'd chosen to lead the mission herself. Not because she wanted to die, but because she refused to send others in her place. It was the one thing she could still control. The crew was small, 10 in total. Beck, the quiet genius whose mind had already begun deciphering Solari technology faster than any Earth system could. Hoshino, resolute as ever, now operating both tactical and communications. Darius Cole had joined them uninvited, insisting on accompanying the mission. "Some debts," he said, "can only be paid in person." The rest were volunteers, each one handpicked. Each one aware this was a one-way journey. They launched just before dawn, Earth turning slowly beneath them, the fires on its surface momentarily hidden by cloud cover. The Solari ship did not interfere, nor did it acknowledge their departure. It merely drifted in silence, its unreadable presence a constant tension behind the stars. The Ouroboros moved quickly, using a slipstream drive barely tested in full combat deployment. They skimmed the edge of the inner solar system in hours, past the burnt remains of orbital stations and broken Zorati husks left behind by Earth's failing defenses. But as they neared Mars, the signal began to throb. Beck sat hunched over the console, brow furrowed. "It's broadcasting in gravity harmonics. The Bioforge doesn't want to be found. It's singing, in a way, masking itself by distorting the curvature of space." Cole leaned against a bulkhead. "So it's alive. It's worse than alive. It's aware." The moment they breached the Martian shadow, they saw it. The forge floated just beyond Deimos, vast and obsidian, shaped like a coiled spiral. Its surface rippled with an oily sheen, as if the hull itself were reacting to their presence. The Zorati had always used organic tech interfaces, but this was something beyond, a sentient machine that knew it was being hunted. "Radiation spike," Hoshino muttered. "We've got particle emissions rising. It knows we're here." Rios gave the order. "Begin silent approach. No active scans. Run cold." They drifted for hours, relying on inertia and the last of their stealth systems. Every heartbeat felt magnified in the silence. Every system failure, of which there were many, felt catastrophic. But the forge didn't respond. Until it did. At 3,000 kilometers, alarms exploded across the bridge. The lights flickered, and the hull groaned as if gripped by a vice. "It's pulling us in," shouted Beck. "Not with gravity, some kind of localized space-time distortion." Rios gritted her teeth. "Engage counter-thrust. Full burn." The ship screamed against the pull, but it wasn't enough. The Ouroboros was dragged into the outer veil, passing through a thin membrane of light that shimmered like water. And then everything went dark. No stars. No sensors. No orientation. Just black. "Report," Rios snapped. "We're inside something," said Beck. "I think it's a pocket dimension, contained, artificially stable. We're off the normal axis of time." "We're not dead?" Cole asked. "Not yet." Then the voice came. Not aloud. Not through speakers. It resonated in their bones. "You enter willingly. You offer no strength. Why do you presume the right to exist?" Rios felt the pressure in her skull, like a storm behind her eyes. She stepped forward. "Because we choose to." Because we fight for each other. You consume. You destroy. You multiply without purpose. Cole growled, and yet we survive. Survival is not merit. It is instinct. The forge pulsed around them. Then it showed them. Each screen aboard the Ouroboros lit up with images, Earth's history rendered in brutal clarity. Genocides. Wars. Cities burning. Oceans poisoned. Forests razed. The Zorati had not invented destruction. They had simply inherited it from their prey. Rios staggered, but forced herself to look. "Show everything," she whispered. And the screens changed. A hand reaching for another in floodwater. A mother shielding her child from an airstrike. Scientists working sleepless nights to solve hunger. A medic dying beside a patient they refused to abandon. The human story, stripped of filters, of narratives. Light and dark in equal measure. Beck stared at the images, eyes wet. "We're more than what we destroy. You are what you protect." The lights flickered. The walls around them began to pulse. "Then prove it." A doorway opened in the black. Beck turned in horror. "It's going to test us physically now." Cole stepped forward first. "Let it try." One by one, they crossed into the core. The interior was a labyrinth of shifting geometry, walls that blinked in and out of phase, corridors that looped impossibly, gravity that reversed and spiraled. It wasn't meant to be navigated. It was meant to break them. Hoshino disappeared first, lost to a collapsing stairwell of light. Two more followed, pulled into void pockets or consumed by recursive loops. Only 4 made it to the central chamber. At its heart stood the forge's core, a living pulse of light encased in crystal. It radiated memory, pain, and potential. Beck collapsed to his knees. "It's speaking again. Not in words, in feelings." Rios placed her hand on the crystal. Her mind was filled with fire, memories not her own. Zorati ancestors discovering the forge. Earth's future cities shattered. And beyond that, a sliver of something else. Hope. The forge waited. "It wants one of us," said Beck. "A willing mind. A consciousness to merge with. To prove intent." "It's not asking," Cole said. "It's taking." Rios stepped forward. Beck's voice caught. "No. You're the only one who can command Earth's defense. You're the symbol. If you die—" "I won't die," she said. "I'll become something else." She turned to Cole, and for a moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Neither saluted. Neither said goodbye. She stepped into the light. It engulfed her, not burning, but embracing. And then she was gone. The core pulsed once. The forge shuddered. And then it began to collapse. The Ouroboros was spat out of the pocket dimension in a scream of energy, hurling the surviving crew into open space. The forge cracked, then shattered, its artificial singularity folding inward and consuming itself. As the explosion faded, only silence remained. Beck floated in his harness, stunned. She did it. She convinced it. Cole closed his eyes. She was the proof. Far away, Earth turned beneath its clouds, scarred but still breathing. And in the sky above, the Solari ship finally moved. The Solari vessel stirred. 4 weeks after the forge's collapse, it had remained still in orbit above Earth, its impossible geometry hanging like a half-remembered dream against the stars. No transmissions, no movement, no response. Humanity had waited, uncertain whether their reluctant visitor was mourning, calculating, or simply observing the aftermath. But now it moved, descending through Earth's exosphere in a slow, deliberate arc. No shields. No weapons. Just silent descent, like a stone dropped into water. On the surface, celebrations had already given way to rebuilding. The Zorati invasion had ended abruptly, their networks unraveling after the Bioforge's destruction. Command structures collapsed. Ships drifted. Some self-destructed. Others fled. No one could explain it fully, but the message was clear. Whatever the forge had been, it had anchored more than just power. And now it was gone. In the ruins of Geneva, Darius Cole stood beneath the broken framework of what had once been the International Defense Nexus. Snow fell in sheets from a colorless sky, masking the smell of ash that still lingered in the concrete. He wasn't supposed to be here anymore. His role had ended with the mission. But something kept him tethered to the place where everything had changed. A hush fell across the crowd gathered in the ruined plaza as the Solari vessel arrived, lowering itself without fanfare into the crater where the Forge's image had once been projected. The air shimmered. And then, without warning, it appeared. Not a projection. Not a single envoy. This time they came. Dozens of Solari stepped forth, each slightly different, their expressions distant yet inquisitive. They moved like reflections in water, elegant, fluid, precise. The crowd parted instinctively, though no force compelled them to do so. At the center of them walked a figure that stopped Cole's heart. Her posture was unchanged. The slight tilt of her chin. The way her boots struck the earth like punctuation marks. And those eyes, piercing, focused. But there was something else, too. Something vast behind them, like galaxies glimpsed through keyholes. "Commander Rios," he whispered, almost unable to believe it. She stepped toward him, and for a long, breathless second, said nothing. Then her voice broke the stillness. "I remember," she said. "I remember everything." He stepped forward, unsure whether to reach for her or salute or simply kneel. "You survived." "I didn't," she said. "Not as I was. The Forge didn't kill me. It transformed me, integrated my mind with its systems, allowed me to shape its self-awareness." She looked upward, her gaze piercing cloud cover. "I showed it what humanity was capable of, and it chose to end itself." "Why?" Cole asked. "Because it believed. Not in Earth, not in governments or armies, but in the idea of sacrifice without expectation. It was made to dominate. But it saw something it couldn't understand, and chose not to become the thing we feared." He looked at her again. "Are you still human?" Rios hesitated. "I'm something with humanity inside me. I see time differently now. I feel systems breathing. I hear the stars humming in equations." A shadow crossed her face. "But yes, I'm still me. The part that chose to walk into the core, that part stayed." The Solari behind her remained still, silent observers. "They came to talk," she said. "To offer something more. They've seen your resilience. Your capacity to evolve under pressure." "What do they want in return?" Cole asked. "They want to share what they know. Not control. Not uplift. Teach. If you're willing to listen." He studied them, remembering their cold introduction, the judgmental gaze, the test Earth had barely passed. "Why the change?" Rios smiled faintly. "Because I changed. And I showed them change is the only proof of life worth recognizing." There was a pause then. The wind whispered through the broken steel girders. Far behind them, children laughed amid the snowdrifts, ignorant of the scope of history being decided in that moment. Cole tilted his head. "We're not ready. Not really." "No one ever is," she replied. "But you're willing. And that's enough." She turned to leave, her cloak of woven starlight catching in the breeze. Cole's voice stopped her. "What now?" She looked back, eyes gleaming. "Now you learn. You rebuild. And you make sure no one ever needs to pass that kind of test again." He watched her rejoin the Solari. As one, they began to walk through the city, through war-torn neighborhoods and shattered infrastructure, not preaching, not commanding, but observing, speaking only when approached. They became part of Earth's new chapter, not saviors, not rulers, but mirrors. Reminders of what could be. Over the next weeks, knowledge flowed, not in torrents, but in gentle streams. Clean energy stabilization techniques. Atmospheric cleansing algorithms. Cures for diseases long thought unbreakable. But all offered conditionally, with patient instruction, and one unspoken rule: humanity must do the work. No shortcuts. No dependency. And from orbit, the Ouroboros, newly restored, began transmitting Lena Rios's final mission logs. Messages meant not for strategy, but for memory. We don't win by being stronger. We win by choosing not to become what we fight. If you're hearing this, it means Earth made a choice. Hold to it. Even when it's hard. Years would pass. Children born after the war would grow up with stories of the unknown ship that decloaked and the woman who walked into fire and came out transformed. Nations would argue over interpretations. Alliances would falter and mend. But the world would never be the same. Because once, in its darkest moment, humanity stood not alone, but watched. And found worthy. And somewhere far beyond the system, where stars swirled in cold silence, other civilizations began to take notice. The echoes of Earth's survival spread outward, like ripples from a stone cast into the heart of the universe. The fight for Earth had ended. But the story of its place in the stars had only just begun.